Good morning. This is Gail Strack from the National Family Justice Center Alliance, and we're so excited to be able to offer this presentation. And I just want to thank you all for joining us. We have over 200 attendees, and I think more are joining by the second. So that just tells you in and of itself how important this is. As I mentioned, I'm Gail Strack with the Alliance. I'm the CEO, and thanks to so many different sponsors, we're able to provide this training to you. But today is a very special one for us. This one is being sponsored by Blue Shield of California Foundation. And what's interesting is how it started. We contacted Kathleen for help because we knew we needed this education for us here at the San Diego Family Justice Center and of all of our folks working with the California Initiative. And she said, or questioned, us and said, hey, would it be possible to share this with all of our California friends? And we thought a second and we said, of course, why not? So we're excited to be able to share this. Obviously, all of you are aware of the budget cuts that happen not only in California but throughout the United States. And these webinars become even more important for us to be able to share good information with others. We're excited today. Actually, let me advance a slide. That's me, in case you haven't had a chance to meet somewhere along the way. And this is our amazing team. We call it the small but very mighty Family Justice Center Alliance team. Here you will see people who are working behind the scenes to make everything happen. And you have Casey Gwynn, who is our leader, and really came up with the idea of having webinars. And you also see Brenda Lugo. Brenda Lugo is the heart and soul of our webinars, organizing it for us each and every month. And the good news is that if you have friends who are interested in listening to this presentation but were not able to join us, the good news is we have this recorded. So within an hour or two, we should have this available for yet others. So let me introduce to you our amazing speaker today who had the great idea and vision to be able to share this with others. This is a photograph of Cathy Patrick. She's the manager of the Safe at Home program with the Secretary of State. A little background so you know a little bit more about Kathleen. She has been an employee of the California Secretary of State's office since January of 1981. After a brief stint in corporations, she was promoted to serve for 11 years in the executive office as office manager, scheduler, and finally chief assistant to former Secretary of State March Fong-u. During her transition to the U.S. ambassador, she has served as international trade representative for former acting Secretary of State Tony Miller and as health, safety, emergency, and training officer for former Secretary of State Bill Jones. Currently, Kathleen serves as Secretary of State to Deborah Bowen in the capacity of Safe at Home program manager. It was 2005 when Kathleen was asked to take over as management of the Safe at Home program, while still serving as a training officer for the Secretary of State. She decided in the fall of 2007 to devote all of her time to managing Safe at Home and has spent a total of 5 years working with dedicated staff to enhance the program by expanding education and outreach efforts, including database and physical office security, and developing model procedures for the implementation and daily operation of confidential address programs. She has served as a resource to other states that have recently developed or are currently starting a new ACP and has worked to expand Safe at Home partnerships with other state agencies and local entities to serve the needs of victims. In her current role as Safe at Home manager, Kathleen strives to provide a positive team environment and encourages innovation, creativity, and professionalism in the workplace, while aiding California survivors of domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault to start new lives free from violence. I am so excited to be able to introduce to you Cathy Patrick. And Kathleen, I'm going to turn this over to you. You have an amazing presentation from the history and questions I didn't even think about asking, so I know it's going to be very informative to everyone. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, Gail, and thank you to the Alliance and Blue Shield for their support and for giving us this opportunity. For those of you that are listening, to good morning or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. On behalf of Secretary of State Deborah Bowen and the Safe at Home staff, I want to thank you for your participation in the webinar today and express our appreciation for your interest in the Safe at Home program. Since time is limited, I'd like to move forward into our program and say to all of you, if you would like to ask questions about it, we're going to deal with those at the end of the program. And I'll move forward right away with our questions. And I mean, with the questions at the end. First of all, I'd like to explain a little bit about what the Safe at Home program is. It was modeled after a program in Washington State that was established 2 years before the Safe at Home program. It's a statewide confidential mail forwarding program for victims of domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault, and also individuals that are involved in the reproductive health care services. It was established in 1999 and was assigned to the Secretary of State's office because of the voter registration component. And when I say voter registration, our participants are all confidential voters. The program aids victims by preventing their information from being obtained through state and local public records. What happens is our participants use a substitute mailing address that we assign for them, a P.O. box, and along with other benefits that help provide additional security. This keeps the program, helps keep their actual residence address private. And how that does it is basically through the legislation that was established in 1998, which enacted the program. In 2000, we added the confidential name change provisions. And each of these benefits I'll go into a little bit more as we get into the program. In 2000, we also added stalking victims as eligible applicants. In 2002, we added reproductive health care system employees and volunteers to the program. And then in 2003, we added DMV suppression. And DMV is Department of Motor Vehicles. And that was added because a year prior to our employees, our participants being included in the program, they allowed law enforcement and judges and elected officials to suppress their DMV records for safety reasons. So we decided to add Safe at Home participants to that category or that program as well. In 2006, because our program is not permanent, legislation was passed to extend the program to 2013. And also in 2006, we had two other pieces of legislation. One was sponsored by our current Secretary of State, and that was to add sexual assault as eligible applicants to the program. And another piece in 2006 was it removed the confidential name change publishing requirement. And I'll speak more about confidential name changes because those are unique to California. In 2007, we extended the voter registration confidentiality. That was sort of a piece of cleanup legislation. And then finally in 2008, we strengthened the piece of legislation that removed the publishing requirement, and we actually required the court not to publish a petitioner's information on court calendars, database, or any other public access. This is for confidential name changes as well.
Okay. Oh, there you go.
Right there, sorry. Sometimes I have to remember to do both of those things. Sorry about that. Here's the legislation. And now I'm going to go into some facts about the Safe at Home program. We are one of 35 states with confidential address programs. It's the most comprehensive confidential address program in the United States. We're the second largest as far as enrollment. Washington State currently has the largest enrollment, and as I said, it's been the longest running program. Our program has been used for a model for other states. A couple years ago, I went to Texas as they had passed legislation to establish a confidential address program. And the Texas Council for Against Family Violence was wonderful in getting that legislation passed and in establishing procedures for that program. Over the years, the Safe at Home program has provided an additional layer of protection for over 4,500 Californians. And our participants are made up of about 50% women, 40% 45 to 46% children and 4% men. So we do have a lot of children in the program, but mainly the majority of our makeup is women. We're the only state, again, that has the confidential name change provision. And there's a lot of interest in this particular benefit to participants because of some of the other challenges that they face in keeping safe from their abuser or stalker. The benefits of enrolling in the Safe at Home program. Basically, the response to public records requests will be completed without disclosure of the victim's confidential locations. For all state and local entities, all county, city governments, state governments must accept the P.O. box as the address of record for our participants. This includes the court system. By using the program benefits, it helps enable victims to reestablish themselves, to give themselves and their families a sense of safety, especially when used with an overall safety program. And we give our participants, once they enroll, a lot of resources and a lot of agencies to go to for further assistance to help develop that safety plan. The participants have a mailing address, again, that is accepted by state and local agencies. However, private entities, utility companies, phone providers, and most federal agencies do not have to accept the Safe at Home P.O. box. And this is where some of the problems have arisen when we start talking about confidential name change. As I mentioned, specifically, the program benefits are the confidential mail forwarding first and foremost. We receive mail daily and process up over 1,000 pieces of mail a day. We have confidential voter registration, and I'll talk about each of these components in the coming slides. We have the Department of Motor Vehicles record suppression, and that's for both driver's license and vehicles. We assist with vehicle smog check confidentiality, and that's because the fees are different in different counties. We assist with confidential transfer of school records for children that are enrolled in the program. We have the confidential name change process, and participants that enroll in the program are agree to have the Secretary of State's office serve as their agent for service of process. So their abuser or anyone trying to contact them to serve process on them must go through the Secretary of State's office to do so. Our mail forwarding works pretty routinely here in the office. We have a wonderful system that includes a very secure database that allows us to update electronically the participant's address whenever we receive a change of address from them. And it does it instantaneously, and then we can send out their mail. When their mail is received, we process it by their ID number that we assign to them, put it in a new envelope, and send it out to them. So when the participant enrolls in the program, they make contact and notify those that they correspond with, and they provide them with their Safe at Home P.O. box address. And that unique 4-digit ID number that we assign to them as an enrollee in the program instead of their residence address. And this is for first-class mail only. As the mail is received in here, we process it daily and send it out to them. So there's usually a 1 to 2 day delay in receiving the mail. The mail must be addressed to the participant's legal name, and this is especially important where participants have had a confidential name change. If mail is received to other parties, AKAs, or inactive participants, the mail is returned to the sender. We only accept first-class mail, service of process, and other certified mail. Service of process is forwarded by certified mail as well. We do not forward newspapers, magazines, catalogs, packages, or boxes, with the exception of checks. We don't do FedEx or UPS or prescriptions. This program eliminates junk mail, so that's one of the benefits as well. It is recommended that Safe at Home participants make other arrangements for mail that is not forwarded by Safe at Home. And what we do is we usually ask them to use a relative's address or a friend if they have Christmas packages or some other type of package that they know they're going to be receiving. Some of our participants elect to go an extra step and list a private USPS or a mailbox address for their packages and magazine descriptions and things like that. So we do mail to a P.O. box, but they must provide a residence address as well in the state of California. We also ask that they remove the address information from mass mailing lists as the information can be made public. There's a lot of information out there on the internet. There's a lot of information that can be gleaned when they open a bank account. They have to be very careful. Once they enroll in this program, there's a lot of steps that they include in their overall safety program that help, in addition to this program, in keeping their actual location confidential. The voter registration process is what initially started this whole idea of confidential address programs. And in Washington State, former Secretary of State Ralph Monroe was approached by a victim of domestic violence who said she really would like to vote, but she was afraid of her information being attained through voter records. And so he said, well, we could find a way to help you. And he basically initiated the first confidential address program, and it's been a model along with our program for other states as well. When we enroll someone in the program through an enrolling agency, they're given a confidential voter registration card that is unique to the Safe at Home program. And they can either elect to register to vote at that time, or we also send it out once they have enrolled and been certified in the program with their participant packet if they decide to wait and enroll at a later date. We do encourage people to register and vote to have their voice be heard, both in the election process and especially when they want to vote on issues that are related or to domestic violence or issues that are related to victims' assistance. They receive an absentee or vote by mail status. That's something that assists them in keeping their information confidential, removes the risk of them going to a polling place and having to register there to provide information there that may become public. The Secretary of State Safe at Home program contacts each of the 58 county registrar of voters prior to a primary or general election to verify who we have currently registered as voters, confidential voters in our program. And that is usually about a month prior to voting materials being sent out. This voter registration material is kept confidential from campaigns, pollsters, and the media. Address information is not entered in the statewide voter registration database. It's kept in a secure area of the Registrar of Voters office with restricted access. And they're very, when a participant leaves the program or moves to a new location, we are required to notify the county registrar of voters that that particular voter has moved, and so that they can remove them from their voting area or reassign them to a new district to make sure they get the correct voting materials. We consider this one of the key functions of our office. One of the most important functions, too, for our participants is the Department of Motor Vehicles record suppression. And the California Vehicle Code, the Department of Motor Vehicles, will suppress the driver's license and vehicle registration records of Safe at Home participants who qualify. The suppression restricts the access to the records only to the DMV Confidential Records Unit. And the Confidential Records Unit, as I mentioned earlier, was established when legislation a year prior to our participants being added to it was passed to set up this Confidential Records Unit to register law enforcement, judges, district attorneys, and other individuals that were at risk from criminals or people that had had sent threats to them. So they decided to suppress DMV information because it was a good way to get home information or residence address information of law enforcement. And then it turned out being an excellent benefit for safe-at-home participants as well. What happens is the inquiries are verified by the Confidential Records Unit, and a participant must inform the Confidential Records Unit of DMV if there's any risk of releasing the information due to their alleged perpetrator's association with law enforcement. Unfortunately, we do have victims that have abusers that are involved with law enforcement, and the Confidential Records Unit will note that in their file because when law enforcement stops a safe-at-home participant and they identify themselves, the law enforcement official knows to contact the Confidential Records Unit to see if there's any outstanding warrants or activity on that participant's driver's license. It's just part of the legal process that we follow. Participants do suppress information, but they're not exempt from other California laws. The suppression of vehicle information is voluntary. It's contingent on an active participation in the Safe-at-Home program. So once a participant becomes inactive, the suppression of their DMV records and their voter registration participation are canceled once if they are terminated from the program, or they move out of state, or we no longer have a viable residence address or contact information on file for them. We also have a service where we assist with vehicle smog check confidentiality. The smog fees vary by county in the state of California. Some counties have higher fees than others, and therefore a residence address must be provided at the smog facility to smog the vehicle. The Bureau of Automotive Repairs performs a special procedure which allows participants in the Safe-at-Home program to smog their cars without providing a residence address. Safe-at-Home acts as a facilitator by receiving car registration information from the participant, providing the information to the Bureau of Automotive Repair, and communicating the completion of the procedure to the participant. One of the ways that abusers often track their victims is through children's school records or children's school activities, especially if they have non-supervised visitation or any visitation at all. And when we have a protective order or restraining order that states there's no contact and a child is enrolled in the program, the participant is allowed to request that when they move to a new location, that the transfer of school records be facilitated by the Safe-at-Home program. The transfer procedure is initiated by the participant by sending us a letter, and we contact the school, and there's a Department of Education code that allows us to transfer or act as an intermediary for these school records. Records are sent to us, and then we transfer them to the new school. So the old school has no record of where the children are now attending. This is kind of a sensitive issue with some of our participants whose abuser or the other parent has the right to information on how the children are doing in school, that sort of thing. We actually work with the participant and the school district, and some of the school districts have been able to provide information without actually providing the name of the school. So a lot of that is stuff that is determined by the courts and the child custody agreements, and we try not to get directly involved with that because it's outside the scope of Safe-at-Home. So we work with the school districts, and each school, when a child is enrolled in the Safe-at-Home program, receives a red flyer that flags that child's cumulative folder that the information is not to be released unless ordered so by the parent. That is confidential. The only exception to this is if Child Protective Services contacts us regarding some sort of issue involving the children. and say Child Protective Services or a law enforcement agency, we do have specific procedures for releasing information for them. And I'll go into that a little bit further into this. Excuse me. Service of process is a requirement for enrollment in the program. We found it was best to act as the intermediary and as a official agent for service of process for our participants. And that service of process must be delivered in person to the Secretary of State's office. I know a lot of people think service can be done by mail or fax, but in the case of Safe at Home participants, it must be delivered in person to the Safe at Home office. And it is for active participants only, which is also another reason we have it delivered to the office. In enrollment cases, when an individual enrolls and they have children or their enrollment application indicates that they have pending court actions, unless court orders specify otherwise, a letter is sent to the other parent indicating that the participant is enrolled in the Safe at Home program and that the Safe at Home program is serving as their agent for service process. And it gives them specific instructions on how to serve the participant through the Secretary of State's office. We have an arrangement with our mailroom that when the service of process is delivered by a process server, we are contacted to verify that the participant is in fact an active participant in the program and has not been terminated or has not withdrawn from the program. And we go over and sign for the documents. We immediately note in the file that we've received documentation for that individual, and we retain one copy for the participant's file, and the other copy is immediately forwarded via certified mail, overnight mail, so that they get it in time. A lot of times the courts do not allow sufficient time for the two-day mail delay that is involved for our participants. So if there's any problem with the service of process, say we receive it on a Friday and they're supposed to be in court on Monday, we will contact the participant and fax the service of process to them or give them the information on it and then make sure that they get the service in time. A lot of times participants will contact the court to indicate that they do need additional time. It's a process that is misunderstood a lot by attorneys and by the individuals that receive the other parent letter, but we take time to explain the process to them on the phone, and hopefully it is providing that additional layer of safety by not having them have any way of serving or contacting the participant directly. This next slide, the confidential name change process, as I mentioned earlier, is unique to California. And the reason it was implemented is because so many abusers or stalkers, or even individuals that have been sexually assaulted, their wallet has been stolen, their address is known, private information is available to their assaulter or perpetrator. We also have had a lot of individuals that have done this confidential name change process in order to buy property, because property records in the state of California are still public information. Also, often the abuser will have their Social Security number, and with the availability of the search engines on the Internet, it's very difficult sometimes to stay hidden from an abuser or stay protected from an abuser. So our confidential name change process is unique, and it is voluntary. We have participants petition to do a confidential name change through the California Supreme Court system. They must initially contact us and receive a packet from us that says that they are intending to change their name confidentially and that they are filling out an intent form. This intent form is the only document that has both their old and new name on it, and it is kept as a permanent record in the Safe at Home office. It is filed with us prior to them going to court, and the court must verify with us prior to issuing the confidential name change decree that that intent is on file. This has not happened a few times, and it has been somewhat interesting for people that go in and do a confidential name change that do not have a name on file with us. So legally, they have no legal name. We've also had judges grant confidential name changes to people that are not in the program, which creates a whole other set of issues. The court must go through the same process as they would for any other name change, which is a background check. If they're changing the name of the children, there are specific issues involved in doing a confidential name change for a child. In most cases, the other parent must be contacted. That procedure is not always followed. So confidential name changes have some unique issues involved with them. The petition and the order of the court and the copy shall not recite the proposed new name. When they do their decree, it says under their new name that it's confidential on file with the Secretary of State's office. That's what the intent name change form is all about. The Secretary of State, once we receive the decree and the intent has been filed and all the background checks and everything has been done, we issue new documents to the participant under their new name and a certification, new ID card, and we provide to them a document that is for their confidential records that states that on such a day, say I, Cathy Patrick, was changing my name to Mary Jane Smith, so that for organizations like private entities or the federal government, and perhaps they want to get a passport, they have some legal documentation that is a certified record from the Secretary of State's office that they have completed a confidential name change, because and they are to use that at their own discretion. If the participant qualifies under the Safe at Home confidential name change document for this process, and they completed their name change, they then apply and get a new Social Security number if they're a victim of domestic violence or their abuser is using their identity fraudulently or illegally, and they can get a new driver's license. And both of these processes are done with certain restrictions. And we'll talk about some of the issues with that too later. The issue that we have right now, and one of the primary ones, is that we advise anyone who is initiating this confidential name change process to seek legal counsel and to look at their lifestyle very carefully before they initiate this process. It is one of the most secure ways to change your name because once they do this process, you don't have to publish it in the newspaper like other people doing a name change do. A new law that was passed and went into effect in 2009 gave the courts a year to implement a second layer of protection, which is that last piece of legislation I was talking about, that removes their old name from the court calendars and any kind of court database. So there's no record with the courts of their old name except on the decree itself, which the judge reviews and they process. So with this, they can then have the records sealed once they've obtained that confidential name change. And so it's a fairly secure process, but if you then want to go out and reestablish credit, you're doing it from start. If you're wanting to get a passport, it's a federal agency, you may have issues with that. If you want to obtain your, say you have a college degree, you may have trouble getting your college records without that document that has both your old and new name on it. So there's a lot to consider before anybody attempts one of these confidential name changes. We ask them to be very careful about, considering their lifestyle and what's going to be affecting them if they institute this. As I said, the new name change procedures went into effect as of January 2010. We worked with the courts and the Judicial Council very closely to establish new procedures and new documents and to implement this. They were very helpful. The new documents were just released in December, and we are updating all of our packets and making sure that everything that we send out coincides and blends well with what the courts have ordered. Okay. We do interact with the courts. We have done one-on-one training with many of the courts throughout the state of California. And I want to say a shout-out to Inyo County. That was one of the last people I got to train. And they were very nice to meet with them. And we've done San Diego County and Orange County, LA County. A lot of our participants are located in the larger communities. So we've done a lot of extensive training in the courts. The courts are instructed to use the P.O. box on all court documents. And we encourage participants prior to going into court for any appearance, custody, any kind of a hearing, divorce hearing, to advise the court clerk ahead of time that they're in the Safe at Home program and that they're going to be using the P.O. box as their address of record. If they've had a confidential name change, say they're going back in, their divorce is final, maybe they're going in for an amendment to custody orders, and during that time they've had a confidential name change, we ask them to advise the court of that so that they can use their prior name in court if they're asked to testify. As I said, other parent notification is required if there are any pending court orders, such as child visitation, custody, or support. And pursuant to Government Code Section 6207 through 6215.5, the Safe at Home address shall be accepted and used instead of a residence address by court and law enforcement officials. And the way we work with law enforcement officials is that if they're sent out on a call to a Safe at Home participant resident for any reason, they need to redact that from the dispatcher's information, and the P.O. box is used on the police report. And it just is a safer process because a lot of those information can be obtained through public records. We want to make sure that there, like I said, is as much confidentiality maintained as possible. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit now about applicant eligibility. Basically, if you are interested in enrolling in the Safe at Home program, you must be a California resident. And we actually have people moving here from out of state to utilize this program. They may end up, once they've completed a confidential name change or taken advantage of some of the processes and benefits that we have, they may eventually move again to another state and start over with their new fresh identity. The Safe at Home or applicant's address must be unknown to the perpetrator. We cannot accept someone that is residing in their house, even if their participant, even if their abuser is in jail. The participant must be at an address that's unknown to their perpetrator or abuser. The participant must testify, or we actually swear under penalty of perjury, that he or she is a victim of domestic violence, stalking, or sexual assault, and that they are in fear for their lives and their safety of their children. We have a document that has a statement on the back of that is witnessed by our enrolling advocate that assists them in completing the application. The applicant must agree to follow the program rules by signing the application acknowledgement. And the applicant's children are eligible to enroll. However, if there is a pending child custody or visitation issues, other parents, again, must be notified by certified mail of how to contact the participant Safe at Home. Our applicants can be in a shelter temporarily If they're in the process of moving, we usually ask them to wait until they've got a permanent address before they enroll. As they enroll, we want to make sure that we have contact information, a phone number, so if anything comes up that we need to reach them right away regarding the service process, they have a working phone number as well. Our individual programs, some states do not do this. Some people, some are allowed to enroll directly through their ACP program in their state. Because California is so diversified and because we have such a large state in area, we elected to follow Washington State's model and use enrolling agencies. We feel that our potential participants get much better counseling and overall service if we utilize a enrolling agency to help them understand about the program and understand other benefits that may be available to them, which the enrolling agencies do a great job of providing. We have over 225 Safe at Home enrolling agencies throughout the state. We try to make sure that we have sufficient agencies in each county based on population. With recent budget cuts and cuts to funding for domestic violence victims, some agencies have had to drop out. Other agencies have stepped up, and so we're trying to stay pretty close to that 225 number. We have our Safe at Home agencies, enrolling agencies on our website, or you can contact our toll-free number that's provided later in the presentation. Enrolling agencies go through the application process with them and then send the completed materials to Safe at Home along with any necessary documentation. Safe at Home then reviews the materials and evidence to make sure a determination as to whether to accept or deny the application. Sometimes the applications are not completed correctly, or they have missing information, or we don't have the correct documentation. Each category has a little bit different requirements. For domestic violence victims, basically they can complete a sworn statement. They do not have to have a police report or restraining order. Same as with sexual assault victims. Because so many times individuals elect not to report sexual assault to police or domestic violence victims will just flee to a shelter or to a friend or something like that. There is no prior police report or history of is established with a law enforcement agency, or sometimes there isn't even medical care that has been provided. We do use, if they do choose to provide information from a doctor, a clergyman, another second party, or a victim advocate letter. The advocate of the enrolling agency can write a letter for them. But for stalking victims, we do require a police report, restraining order, any kind of government agency record of file of stalking, like a letter from a victim advocate with substantial knowledge of abuse, harassment, or the threats, and the documentation from a legal, a clerical, or medical, or other professional. It must be all these things must be on letterhead and signed, or any other evidence that supports the victim's sworn statement on the application, and that anything that supports it must be notarized so that we can make sure that it's from the individual and signed by the individual. There's an application training that we do directly for enrolling agencies, and if you want to contact us a little later in the presentation, there'll be contact information if you want to have that specific training. But today I wanted to go over just sort of general knowledge, general information about the program. Once we get the application approved, the participant receives an enrollment packet that contains a laminated ID card and to present when proof of enrollment is needed, an official certificate of enrollment, and a P.O. box number in Sacramento to use for their official mailing address in the state and local agencies. And then we have a 4-digit ID number. Our mailing system We have mail bins, have several hundred of them, but because we have close to 2,500 active participants, and not all of them receive mail every day, we have divided those bins up so that they receive mail for up to 3 participants. So that ID number is assigned to on each bin. There's 3 ID numbers on each bin, so it's very important that participants put their ID number on their mailing address so we make sure it's a direct individual. Otherwise, we look it up on our database. And one of the things that we're most proud of that we've done in recent years is we have created higher security for our database. We actually have 2 hard drives at our desk. One is a direct link to a secure safe-at-home database that we keep all of our participant information on. And from that database, that is attached to our mail machine so we can mail out to our individuals. No one has our internet access. All of our word processing and desktops are on a separate PC, so there's no way for someone to hack into our database or access information remotely. The information that we also provide to participants is information about our benefits and how to apply for them. But they do need to complete a form, a separate form to suppress their DMV information, both their vehicle and their driver's license information. And we also include information on victims' compensation and another program called the Bind Program. If their abuser or perpetrator is in jail, you can register with the Bind Program to be notified when they're released from prison or jail. They kind of give you a heads up. So some people may elect to add additional protection if their perpetrator is being released. And a general information letter that we provide to them, it's a to whom it may concern letter. When they go to utility companies or to agencies that are not required to accept a safe-at-home address, this letter explains the program, explains that the individual is an active participant in the program, and why their information needs to be protected. We feel it's important for them to keep their address confidential in as many ways as possible. I'm going to show you what our ID card looks like. It's a laminated card, and it contains their signature and an expiration date at the very bottom of the, underneath the signature side of it. And the authorization ID number is the 4-digit number that's listed there. And then we do have their P.O. box would be listed on the back of the card that along with their ID number, and the way their address should be listed on the envelope. Some places require a field for residence address, and so we have established a Poppy View Lane address, which is a fictitious address. And we do get some confusion because that address doesn't exist, and it's just used basically as a filler for databases at private entities that do require a residence address, or that they need to have something in that field. We tell them not to mail to the participant at that address, but only to mail to them at the P.O. box. One of the things I would like to talk a little bit about, too, today is the importance of our enrolling agencies. Because the victims can't apply directly to Safe-at-Home at the Secretary of State's office. In fact, our office is in a private area of a city block building, and half the employees of the Secretary of State's office don't even know where we're located. So there's no name on our door. We're very secure here and safety conscious. We partner with these designated enrolling agencies in their victim witness programs, domestic violence shelters, family justice centers, reproductive health care centers, sexual assault crisis centers. We work with a lot of colleges and universities. All of these agencies are so critical to the success of Safe-at-Home. They play such a key role in making sure that individuals know about the program and understand the benefits and encourage people to take advantage of it if it's something that will work for them. So we want to extend our thanks to them for all of the help. I also want to say that if you're out there and you are interested in our program and want to be an enrolling agency, we can't function without your help. And with the fiscal crisis and budget cuts, we've had to, I mentioned, lose a few of our enrolling agencies, and we've gained a few new ones. So we really want to make sure that there are enough resources available for survivors of domestic violence, stalking, and sexual assault in each county. So please contact us at our toll-free number if you are interested, or via email. And there will be more information on our contact at the end. As I mentioned earlier, the Safe at Home program.
Kathleen, this is
Yeah.
Gail. Kathleen, I'm going to jump in for a second. We've received some requests from our attendees. If you could just speak a little louder. They love the information you're sharing. I think some folks have other people in the room.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting a little too casual, leaning back. Sorry about that. Okay. Our safety plan for participants. Safe at Home is one component. It's not a guarantee of protection. It's not witness protection, but it is a good start on an overall safety plan. We ask our participants to be very, very careful with who they share their address with. A lot of times they'll give it to a family member or a friend, and inadvertently that person will say, oh yeah, I heard the kids are in a new school in this and such an area. And it just, the information gets leaked and they have to move again, which can be very expensive, very costly, and very traumatic. We ask them to be very careful about internet usage, or even things like using FedEx. FedEx keeps a database, and you can go into a FedEx office and give somebody a name and say, I mailed to them a while ago, and they can look up that name and address. So you would be surprised at how many information sites there are that have personal information available based on your Social Security number, your driver's license, or past residence address. So posting any personal information on the web can be very dangerous. And California has a Office of Privacy that you can Google, and they will tell you tips for keeping your information off the internet. We ask the participants to work with advocates and organizations like the Stalking Resource Center to learn about the latest tools to prevent being located by their abuser. Stalking Resource Center has a great website that has a lot of information, not only about how to keep a stalking record, which is helpful for law enforcement, but also ways that technology is used to stalk individuals. So we encourage people to explore a safety program, even down to having a box of all your critical information handy, so if you do have to flee, you've got that emergency box that you can take with you to reestablish yourself. And when a physical address is required by some agencies, we have some questions that we ask the participants to ask that agency. If it's a utility company, of course, they're going to have your address because they need to know where to provide service. But if it's a government agency, some agencies like social services, in order to provide benefits in that county, they need to know that you reside in that county. So we have a process for that we work with social services. But if you're asked by an agency to provide your actual physical address, we tell participants to ask if it's required by law or some sort of agency policy. And if so, they need to show their Safe at Home ID card to the representative and request that the information be protected by a password or any other security measure that the agency can provide. Maybe they can limit access to that information. And we ask that the participant get assurance in writing, if possible, that the information will not be shared with other parties. And if needed, refer the agency or business to the Safe at Home office, and we will explain more about the program to the individual agency. There are some entities that do require a residence address. The county registrar of voters must have it, although they keep it confidential with your voter registration card. This is to establish what voting district you're in and what ballot information you need to see. Another agency, as I mentioned, is County Welfare and Social Services, and they are working with us to keep that information confidential. And normally what they will do is with the participant there, we will verify by giving out their zip code, which area the individual lives in by zip code only, and that's sufficient for the county, unless there is a home visit required, and then they work to keep that information confidential. Schools, even though a child is in the Safe at Home program, schools do require an emergency contact number for the parent. So they may have the Safe at Home address, but they do need to have an emergency contact number. And I do have an interesting story. We actually had somebody who listed our toll-free number on their dog's ID tag. And so when their dog got picked up by an animal shelter in Southern California, we got contacted about our lost dog. So we do request that they not use our toll-free number for that purpose. Private entities, retailers, utility companies, sometimes they'll share or sell information to other companies. We ask that participants inform them of the risks of that and do whatever they can to protect the information. One of the biggest issues is property records, and the county assessor tax records or property records are public, and that's something that the media has fought for under Freedom of Information Act. So we really can't do too much about that at this time. I don't know whether the legislature will determine that they're going to make changes to that for individuals that are in Safe at Home or other protected programs, but there's starting to be more and more protection available. I know there was some legislation that was sponsored by Senator Leno last year to help protect people that are in witness protection program from having their information on the internet. So we're hoping to kind of tag on to that and get it extended to Safe at Home participants. There has been a new ruling from the Department of the Treasury. It's the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, and this was issued on November 3rd of 2009. It's called the Customer Identification Program Rule, Address Confidentiality Programs. And this is something that Minnesota State's ACP kind of initiated. And what they did is ask the Department of Treasury if the P.O. box could be listed for banks and credit unions. And there is a caveat under the Department of Treasury where the contact address, instead of being the actual residence address, can be a friend or relative. So they utilized that caveat and issued a new ruling that if the participant in the Safe at Home program elects to use something other than their residence address on a bank, registering for a bank, that they could list the actual physical address of the Safe at Home program. We're trying to work this out now and develop our policies and procedures for this, but that is a new ruling that the Department of Treasury just issued recently. So we're seeing some movement on the federal side for protection, which is a great thing for us and for our participants. There are times when we are asked to release the Safe at Home address, and this may be by court order. Also, if we receive a written request from a law enforcement agency, which is signed by the head of that agency, it must be part of an active, ongoing investigation. And the reason we ask that it be signed by the head of the agency is because sometimes we do have an abuser that is involved with law enforcement and is using that authority to obtain their victim's address. If a participant is terminated or withdraws from the program, and at the discretion of the manager Safe at Home, the address can be released. We haven't had too many cases of this happening. It's usually if several years after this act, 3 years normally, we may get a call or something like that somebody's trying to track an individual down, and if they have been left the program and there's sufficient reason, we had somebody that was looking legitimately for an inheritance and stuff, but we were able to release that information safely, and it was verified by being able to contact the participant. If we have to verify the county of residence, like I said, to social services, we do release the zip code so that their address can be verified and they are entitled to benefits from that particular county. The other thing that we have is we do have provisions for termination. Sounds like a movie that the governor was in, but it's not really. It's closing their case is what we do. If we determine that an individual has provided false information on the application, or their sworn statement is proven to be false in court, they can be terminated or their case can be closed. If the participant has enrolled in the program to evade law enforcement or legal action, they can be terminated from the program. If they enroll to unlawfully avoid custody or visitation orders, they can also be guilty of a misdemeanor and as well as be terminated from the program. And we are working with cases, law enforcement on certain cases like this. One of the misconceptions that a lot of people have when they flee is that because the children are with them, they feel they have legal and physical custody of the child. And it's very important that they understand that they need to contact law enforcement or a DA's office to establish that they are a victim of domestic violence, to get that proper custody established. And they can work with their enrolling agency and legal services to do so. If the participant obtains a legal name change and is using another name, or they move without notifying us 7 days prior to doing so, they can be terminated from the program. It is critical for Safe at Home to have an actual physical address that is current and accurate for participants in the program. Because we are their agent for service of process and legally responsible for getting that service to them in a timely fashion, we have instituted a policy of doing a mass mailing twice a year to all of our participants, usually to update them on new legislation, to remind them to use their ID numbers for various reasons, maybe for education or to advise them of new services that are available. But it also gives us an opportunity to verify that we have the correct address on file. And if we do have mail returned to us from that address, we don't automatically close the case. What we do is we try to contact them by phone. The phone's been disconnected. We try to contact the enrolling agency that enrolled them, make sure that they haven't returned to a shelter or lost housing, or maybe perhaps they have a new address and the shelter's aware of it, or whoever the attorney is that they're working with is aware of it. So we want to make sure that they keep current with us as far as address and contact number. And again, if the participant is unreachable, we have to close the case. If service of process is refused or mail is returned as undeliverable, as I said, we go through the same process of checking. Or if the participant moves out of state, we also have to terminate them from the program because the program is only for victims that reside in California. We do often see participants, and we do provide information on the other 34 states and how to contact them if they do want to move to another state or relocate to another state that has an ACP program. And we do have kind of a process of, if they move from Washington and they were in an ACP program here, we accept that as proof of domestic violence. So kind of a reciprocal process. As I mentioned before, some of our current issues with Safe at Home are the confidential name changes. Social Security is getting a new Social Security number has become a pretty big issue for a lot of participants. Some have been able to go through the process and get one issued within a relatively short period of time. Others are stuck in limbo and cannot get a new Social Security number. And part of that reason is because Social Security often requires that they have a current police report or a current proof of threat. And if they're in the Safe at Home program and they've been in the program for 3 or 4 years, they may not have that. So we're working with Social Security at both a local and regional level and have been in contact with their Baltimore office about Safe at Home providing some sort of documentation about them being at risk and therefore eligible. But Social Security works with Department of Homeland Security, and they're pretty tough sometimes on issuing new Social Security numbers. Same thing is true with the California Department of Motor Vehicles and issuing new California driver's license numbers. Most of our participants that do a confidential name change, they want to make sure that they have a new Social Security number and a new driver's license number, because those are both key ways of an abuser tracking them. So if they can't get a new California driver's license number because they have existing actions on their license, they will be issued a driver's license under their new name but with their same old ID number. The other issue that is currently a problem is the understanding with the court with child custody issues, visitation, notifying the other parent. We've had too many cases, as far as we're concerned, of Safe at Home not being recognized by the courts, Safe at Home participants not being given the benefits they're entitled to in the courts, that custody of children that were victims of domestic violence, as well as the intimate partner, being given to the other parent because the Safe at Home participant did not want to give out their actual residence address in court. And some judges we've been able to work with and say, work with CPS or the court investigator, have them do a site visit to make sure the house is safe, and the court can have that address on file, or CPS can have that address on file. But there are ways to work around the requirement of actually knowing the participant's address. The whole reason they're in the program is to keep safe from the abuser. So it's critical that the courts understand domestic violence, and the ramifications that it can have. The idea of this program being established was that individuals could start over without the fear and the retaliation from an abuser. And believe me, when someone attempts to leave, they are found by the abuser, the statistics are not good as far as surviving them. So this is why more and more states are establishing these types of programs. We are currently this year focusing on making our program a permanent program. It's been attempted about 3 or 4 years ago, and at that time the legislature just extended it to 2013. We feel that it should be a permanent program. We've contacted other states, and about half the other states have permanent programs. Others have sunset states that are extended beyond ours. So we feel that it's time for the program to be a permanent program, and we hope that that too will give people more confidence in enrolling in the program, that it is permanent. And lastly, our last issue is probably the issue of property records and internet issues. The concern that we have about the release of residence address, that's why a lot of people are doing the confidential name change and then getting stuck in limbo with that. If property records, if there was some way of protecting those, maybe some people would elect to keep their original name. The internet, protecting information on the internet is critical as well. So we're hoping that we can create more awareness with internet providers that there are safety issues for individuals, and having their information posted all over the web is not the best idea. And hopefully we can make some headway in this next year or so. I think for this presentation, it's been more or less general. If you want to have specific information about how to complete the application process, how to become an enrolling agency, please feel free to contact us. We do one-on-one training over the phone. We'll send you a different PowerPoint than what we did today. We have a website. We're actually in the process of redesigning. And you can contact us by email here at the Secretary of State's office. But again, our toll-free number, our staff is always willing to help and explain the program or answer any questions about it. And now I would like to give you the opportunity to talk and if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Great. Kathleen, that was a very comprehensive PowerPoint. In fact, some of the questions that came in early on were answered by you at the tail end of your presentation. But we've got 14 minutes left, so we'll go ahead and answer some of these questions that have not been answered by you during your presentation. So here's the first one. What do you recommend when a person needs to fill out a prescription in the pharmacy and they ask the person for their address?
Normally, if they don't pick it up, if they don't just go in and they can show them, and they may accept the P.O. Box address. They can use the Poppy View address if the pharmacy will accept that. A lot of times the pharmacy will accept a P.O. Box address if they show the ID card. Most companies now are aware of the problems of domestic violence. They're aware of the issues. They may not be aware of the Safe at Home program, but we have actually had calls from pharmacies and private entities about the program, and they are very sensitive to what is going on, and usually can find some way to accommodate. Medical records also are protected under privacy. The issue that we do have sometimes is when a family goes through a divorce and the wife is entitled to medical benefits as part of the divorce proceedings, and they share the same medical provider. That information needs to be worked with the individual medical provider, and we can provide a letter, that to whom it may concern letter, usually can go out to the medical provider that lets them know that the participant is in the program, and again, that their information is confidential from the former intimate partner or husband or abuser.
Okay, great. You had a question about why would a person be removed, and you've answered that, but here's another one. Does a court clerk have the authority to deny a person the Safe at Home confidential name change if we cannot verify they are active participants?
Yes. It is critical because the confidential name change process is not complete, and if the court clerk does not contact us and verify that they are an active participant, virtually they are not entitled to do a confidential name change under the provisions of Safe at Home unless they are active in the program.
Okay.
Because if they're not active, it means we don't have an address for them. They may not have filed an intent, which is the first step of this process. And it's basically, they may be stuck in limbo with no legal name.
Got it.
Because we can't issue them an ID card and without the court decree, and the court decree should not be issued without that intent being on file.
Okay. Let's go to the next question. Can you tell us a little bit more about how your 800 number operates? I can imagine there have been some budget cuts. Is there someone always available to answer that?
Well, it's Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. We have talked about some states where the confidential address program is in the Attorney General's office. They actually have a 24-hour hotline. We right now are only staffed from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And so that's the hours of operation that the line is staffed. We do answer the phone, and we have a recording on it so you can leave a message if you happen to call over the weekend. And we would do return calls. And I do have a BlackBerry, or I've had a BlackBerry, and I can, if I get an email, I can respond to that sometimes on the weekend. But right now, due to budget cuts, I don't have my BlackBerry, so I'm rethinking that.
Boy, you are dedicated to answer the emails over the weekend. Okay, a couple more have also been answered. Here's one. one of our attendees thought that you mentioned about seeking legal representation, which I remember you did mention that. But in their situation, they have many clients who are low income. They wanted to know specifically if you know if the Legal Aid Society will assist individuals with this particular issue.
So what we just did is we got a list of about 200 legal aid societies throughout the state of California. And we've just done a survey to them, and a contact letter to them, explaining about the program and explaining the need for legal services to victims of domestic violence, stalking and sexual assault, and need for assistance in court specifically, or with the name change process. Many of the legal services don't understand the name change process because it is something that is unique to California and to Safe at Home program. We have worked with McGeorge School of Law, and we do many of the family court centers, and I know San Diego County has a good one, have information about our program, and we will try and refer them to a legal aid service in their county. We ask them to work with shelters and advocates or the victim witness programs to see if they have legal resources available. The idea mainly is to consider your lifestyle and what needs you may have. Are you going to need to get a passport? Are you going to need, do you have, and to request copies of all your school records under your old name and your degrees and even car insurance. All those things that you're basically creating a new identity, and you're having to reestablish yourself under that identity. And that one document that we do provide for you can be shown in cases when it's necessary to prove who you are. But it is important that people really understand the ramifications of a confidential name change, which is why we ask them to, actually you can call the 211 numbers in the counties too. I don't know if everybody's aware of that, but there was a law passed that all counties should have a 211 number that lists all resources by type of resource in each county. So you may be able to find something through them. But George has a legal clinic that they have worked with us and received training on our confidential name change process. But they usually like to work with people in the Sacramento area. But, as I said, we also work with the Bakersfield Legal Center in Kern County. We've tried to do as much training as we can with the clerks of the court and the courts throughout, superior courts throughout the state of California. But, they can always call our toll-free number, and we'll do our best to advise them to a free legal service in their area.
Okay. A couple more. What happens if somebody loses their Safe at Home ID card?
They can contact us, and we will send them out. We do a verification process, make sure that they are who they say they are, and then we will send out a new ID card to them.
Okay. Someone noticed that your Jane Doe ID card included an expiration date. They wanted to know what are the factors that you use to determine the expiration date?
Well, the law establishing the program said that individuals will be enrolled for a period initially of 4 years. At the end of that 4 years, they will receive, about 2 months before the expiration date, a renewal form that they can complete for themselves and their entire family if they need, saying that they are still at risk and they want to continue their participation in the program. And then we receive that form. We send new ID cards to them to sign as well. And then we reissue new ID cards and certificates for a new 4-year period. We've had people that have been in the program since the inception of the program. But normally the expiration date is on there for the initial 4-year period or for a renewal 4-year period. But again, the reason we ask people to contact us is that expiration date may be invalid if the participant has become inactive during that time period. In other words, somebody may enroll in the program, do a confidential name change immediately, get a new Social Security number, new driver's license, and then leave the state or withdraw from the program. So and they may not, they're supposed to turn their cards back into us, but sometimes they don't. And we want to make sure that people verify with us if they have a question about the expiration date on the card.
Okay. Here's another one that just came in. I had a blind client who enrolled in the Safe at Home program, and she was told that she would not be receiving the mass mailing she gets from free matter for the blind, like tapes and readings. That would probably be the junk mail you were referring to. Is there a way to address this for clients with disabilities? I know you had some suggestions. Would you have any more for a blind client?
Well, we do, if they have a reader and a computer, there are some programs for the blind. We also are working with the California Council for the Blind to do some Braille and some materials that are accessible to the blind. We're in that process right now. We have so much diversity and so many issues and so many people that are persons with disabilities that need special services or special materials provided to them, that just for budget cut reasons we can't always provide everything that we need, but we usually try to provide them with a resource or a contact or somebody that can assist them with it. We actually have about 4 or 5 people in the program that are visually impaired, and we will send them materials in a larger font, or we will work with the Council for the Blind to try and find someone that can assist them in receiving and reviewing our material.
Okay. Well, given our time, we could probably take one more. Since this was a repeated question, I think it's definitely worthy of going over it one more time. Can you please explain the requirements to notify the other parent when there are pending custody, visitation, or support orders? I think we're all worried about exactly what information we have to tell the abuser. Could you go over that again?
If we receive on the back of our application, there is an area where the individual applicant indicates that they are involved in current court actions, and if so, they are asked to list the address of the last known address of the other parent and or their attorney, and or their other partner and the attorney. If they don't have the attorney address, they just list the last known address. If that is accompanied by a restraining order that has no contact, we provide in the letter only that they serve the Safe at Home at our street address. The other parent only gets our street address. If there's no visitation, no contact by the other parent, they only get our address. If there is visitation granted or supervised visitation, or it's pending, there's no documentation indicating, we will contact the participant to see if they just did not send it or not. Because once they check that box that there's pending court issues, by law, we have to notify the other parent or the other individual that this is how they serve the participant. If there is nothing, then we send the P.O. box and for the individual their ID number so that they can establish child visitation or how they're going to exchange the child, or so that there's some way that they can contact their children if that's so ordered by the court.
Okay. We have a few more questions that we're not going to be able to get to today, but we also have a solution for that. In the past, when that has happened, we connect with you, and we'll give you the questions, and then our speaker has usually been very gracious to give us an answer that we will later post on our website. But to wrap things up, Kathleen, I just want to thank you. You are definitely the right person to have done this presentation today. You're a wealth of information. And for those of you who are still listening, please, we want to encourage you to become a member. It's very easy and it's for free. And as you can see, there are many opportunities for us to provide free training. So if nothing else, you want to know about the free training that we're able to provide. Going forward, obviously some of you are interested in learning more about a Family Justice Center, so we have information for you. Just go to our website and find out more. We have our upcoming conference that we're very excited about. People are already signing up, so it's going to be yet another wonderful opportunity for people to network, find out about other family justice centers, and also at the core we have some great information about family violence, because we still need to sharpen our skills and learn what is happening in the field. So a lot of new information is going to be shared this year at our conference. So thank you again for joining us today, and we want to give special thanks to our sponsor, Blue Shield of California Foundation. They have truly become a friend to this particular field and area, and thanks to them we were able to share it beyond just the family justice centers, but many others who are helping victims of domestic violence. So everyone, please keep up the good work, and thank you again, Kathleen. And I just too want to give a little shout out to Inyo. They're doing some amazing work, and I say if you're having any problems with a judge in your jurisdiction, I would refer them to Judge Dean Stout in Inyo County or Virginia Bird, because they are doing fantastic work, not only in the courthouse, but with their dynamic Domestic Violence Council. So thank you all on behalf of the National Family Justice Center Alliance. We're grateful to be able to share this amazing information to all of you. Have a great week and a great year. Bye-bye.